Good evening and welcome to the thorough newspaper analysis for 8th April 2022. Today we have one article which is titled Guilty Until Proved Innocent and has been taken from the Indian Express editorial and has been authored by Rikita Sonavane, Pravita Kashyap and Mrinalini Ravindranath. Following that, as you know, we will have the news update and the legal news, which are a part of LawSikho's initiative to keep its students and readers updated with the current affairs that are happening in and around of India. So today's article, Guilty Until Proved Innocent, again talks about the Criminal Procedure Identification Bill of 2022. So this bill allows police and prison authorities, or rather any law enforcement agencies, to store and analyze physical and biological samples, including retina and iris scans of convicts. So the bill seeks to repeal the Identification of Prisoners Act of 1920, where the scope of recording details of a prisoner was limited to only finger impressions and foot impressions, and they were also limited to only a certain category of convicts. The new bill, however, expands the scope of these measurements to include iris signature, handwriting samples, biological samples, and some more. The records taken for these prisoners can be stored for 75 years. And it also proposes to record the details of persons detained under any preventive detention law. Opposition says that this can be misused against political adversaries. So if a person with no criminal background is released without trial or acquitted by the court, all records of the measurements so taken shall have to be destroyed. And the Criminal Procedure of Identification Bill 2022 has now been passed in Rajya Sabha too, after 2 days after the same was passed in the parliament. However, when we are talking of the latest innovations in technologies, and when we combine the provisions of this bill with the latest innovations of technologies, the provisions strictly violate the constitutional right against self-incrimination, which is enshrined under Article 20, Subarticle 3. And the provisions of this article protects the accused from being a witness against themselves in the cases. However, this provision was diluted when a 2005 amendment was brought to CRPC, which empowered a magistrate to order for a handwriting sample in cases that needed it. And further, in the case of Ritesh Sinha versus the state of UP, the Supreme Court held that when ordering for a handwriting sample, a magistrate could also order for voice samples of the accused. However, the new law of criminal identification now states that the law enforcement authorities can record iris and retina scans, physical examinations, biological samples such as handwriting, signature, and voice samples, photos, and a lot of other things shall be collected and preserved, and the National Crime Bureau shall process and share with them any law enforcement agency that requires it. Now, the issue with the law is that the wordings of this legislation is very vague, and there is a possibility of coercion of accused people and novel and disturbing levels of surveillance which was being complained of, and further stifling of dissent are no longer mere speculations that are being made. These have been brought into fact solely because this law has now been enacted. So the biggest issue with the vagueness of this law is that the past of a man could immediately incriminate them. And this is reminiscent of what could happen to the already policed minorities. So what happens is, if an individual was held guilty of an act and the person had to spend his term of imprisonment, and now the person had been, let's say the individual has completed his term in the prison and has now been relieved. So even then, if a similar incident happened in his locality, let's say, and the police were to investigate into the matter, they would immediately incriminate him because he had a past criminal record. And maybe this person was not even involved in it, but he would somehow still be harassed because the police could dig into his past and they could verify that yes, this person had such a criminal record, so let's bring in him as a prime suspect. And this is reminiscent of what could happen to the already policed minorities. Now, when we're talking of policed minorities, it reminds us of the habitual offenders provisions which are present in the police regulations of different states. What happens is, the Vimukta members, whom we are referring to here as the policed minorities, these this community in particular go through an eternal cycle of arrest, bails, and acquittals. What happens is the police consider these people, the people of this community, to be inborn criminals. That is, they are criminals by birth. And the members of this community are continuously arrested, they are blackmailed, they are forced to take bails, or in cases, the court acquits them of the charges that they have been arrested on, and the police goes on and arrests them yet again. And this entire cycle continues. So, whenever a parliament is making such laws, they should be careful of the nature of such laws, and they should also remember to take into consideration whether these laws will attack the fundamental rights that every individual is guaranteed because they are a citizen of India. For the news update today, we have the first Black woman elevated to US Supreme Court as our first article. Ketanji Brown Jackson was confirmed by the Senate on Thursday as the first Black woman to serve on the Supreme Court in a milestone for the United States, infusing the federal judiciary with a broader background. The vote to confirm the 51-year-old federal appellate judge to a lifetime job on the nation's top judicial body was 53-47, with three Republicans, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski, and Mitt Romney, joining Biden's fellow Democrats. 7th anniversary of PM Mudra Yojana. Today is the 7th anniversary of Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, PMMY. The scheme was launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on 8th April 2015 for providing loans up to 10 lakh rupees to non-corporate, non-farm, small or micro enterprises. The scheme has helped in creating an enabling environment, particularly for small businesses, and has helped generate large-scale employment opportunities at the grassroots levels. Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana, or PMMY, has given wings to the dreams and aspirations of millions, along with a feeling of self-worth and independence. For the third news today, we have the super app Tata Neu. Tata Neu will now have in-house brands including Chroma, Westside, Air Asia India, the Taj chain of luxury hotels, and Big Basket, according to the group's website. Described as a super app and in the pipeline since at least mid-2020, the website called it a unified platform that connects several brands across the Tata universe like never before. For the legal news, we have consumer courts can direct builder to give refund and compensation to home buyers for failure to deliver apartments, holds Supreme Court. The Supreme Court in a recent case held that the consumer courts have the right to grant relief to flat buyers who were aggrieved by the builder's inability to hand them over the flat. Consumer courts can also order for refund and compensation to a consumer for the deficiency in services. And the same has been held in the case of Experian Developers Private Limited versus Shushma Ashok Shirur. For the second article today, we have Madras High Court upholds the validity of state law providing 7.5% reservation for government school students in medical examinations. The Madras High Court upholds a decision of a horizontal 7.5% reservation in medical colleges for government school students. The judgment was passed in a batch of matters that challenged the constitutionality of the horizontal admission being granted by Tamil Nadu through their Government Schools Act 2020, Act number 34 of 2020. And the same has been held in the case of Mrs. Pritika, who is a minor, versus the state of Tamil Nadu and others. Thank you for being with us. For free study materials and TNA PDF slides, please join our Telegram channel by scanning this QR code. You can also follow us on our Instagram channels, LawSikho Judiciary, LawSikho Clat Prep, and UGCnet_LawSikho. For any further information, you can always visit www.lawsikho.com. Thank you.